What would it look like? How would it feel if you were able to break free from a narcissistically abusive relationship or toxic person in your life? Welcome to the Sharpening Stone Coaching. I'm David, and in this video, we're going to discuss what a recovery journey could look like for you so that you can take back your self-agency and your self-confidence to live a healthy and authentic life, free from the toxicity of narcissists and abusive people.
I see it.
Okay, great. So tonight I wanted to kind of touch on what recovery looks like, and recovery from toxic relationships of all kinds, not just narcissistically abusive ones. Even though everybody's recovery journey is, or sometimes it's called a healing journey, is unique, and no two are the same. It's not there's no cookie cutter approach to healing. There are some things that we will see in common throughout our process of breaking, realizing, one, that we're in a toxic relationship, realizing that we need to do something about it, and that the other person is not going to change, and then grieving the loss and moving into our own healing process. So just to kind of give a broad picture of what you could expect and in a typical recovery, and I'll be asking for y'all's input throughout the presentation as well. Typical recovery, it goes from through the grieving process, which is its whole process on its own. I know what I'm missing here. My notes. There we go. Which is its own process of grief. And that doesn't have a time limit on it. There's no, Betty Crocker recipe book that says, you'll be in shock and denial for this long with a pinch of pain and guilt, and, add 2 cups of melted anger and bake in the sadness and depression for 3 years, and then you'll be done. It doesn't work that way. The process can move back and forth, can experience multiple stages at the same time. Maybe you get stuck in one for a while, maybe skip over. It's really unique to each person. However, these are some of the stages that have been identified as people have gone through grief and counseling that seem to be common across the board. And there may be others. Some people may not experience a certain stage at all. So your own recovery process really is your own, and there's no comparison really to anyone else's. There may be similarities and areas where you can find camaraderie, if for lack of a better word, or companionship or sympathy, where people have gone through similar stages and processes. But no one really knows exactly your process except for you. And that can seem a little isolating, but it's also a blessing in that you are in charge of your recovery, and it's subject to no one else's judgment, no one else's criticism, no one else's dismissal or valuation. It's completely and entirely yours. You own it from beginning to end and everything in between, and you have the right to engage it as you see fit, and no one else can say anything about it. In recovery, we oftentimes, once we get over the grief, or even while we're in it, we'll have a lot of outward focus. And that's where we can spend a lot of time in this day and age watching YouTube videos about narcissism, the narcissistic abuse, what the narcissist does. Has anybody gone through hours on end watching videos that describe what you've been through?
Yes, it's all too relatable.
Yeah, it's like somebody had a hidden camera in your house, and they're like, were they living with me, or what's going on? How did they know exactly what I went through? That was my experience for sure. And I found it comforting to know that it wasn't just me. I wasn't just crazy. I wasn't just wrong, but that other people have experienced this and put names and descriptions and described the patterns, making it predictable. So I could see the signs of what was starting and then know how it was going to play out, and lo and behold, be right. For me, that gave me a great sense of control over myself and over the situation, because now I knew, hey, when they're getting ready to do the silent treatment, right before, they might rage out. So then I knew what to expect. And if I dared to speak up and give an opinion on something of theirs, even if, as I'm trying to be helpful, maybe, to correct them in something I see that they're going into that is going to cause them problems, we could know they're going to rage out. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. The process is going to last predictably, according to them, this long. And it made it to where I wasn't just receiving all their criticism for being the bad one and making them angry, but no one can tell them what to do, which at the time, that never even struck me until years later. I realized, wait a minute. They were at the same time claiming that I was in control of their behavior and that no one but them was in control of their behavior, which made no sense. Just a tactic to shift blame and guilt. Once we kind of have our fill of the outward focus and getting all the information about what was going on and really just digesting it over and over again, and the next phase is shifting inward, because we realize the other person's never going to change. There's nothing we can do to control or manage or manipulate them. One, they're just too good at it. They've been doing it their whole life. And even if we spent 30 years trying to practice their skills, they've still got an extra 20 or 30 or 40 or more years at it than we do. So they'll always be that much further ahead. And it's not worth becoming a narcissist to defeat a narcissist. It's kind of a scorched earth. It just has no value to completely annihilate ourselves in order to try and get back at them. Much better is to get the inward focus and work on our own core wounds. Learn what it was when we were young, when we were little, when we didn't have a job, didn't have skills, didn't have money, didn't have strength. We were dependent on other people. What injured us then so much that we got conditioned to be suitable for a narcissist to latch onto us and re-traumatize us, to re-inflict those core wounds that are so familiar to us from our youth. That inward focus is where the healing really, really starts to take off. It's tough work. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable. There's a lot of anxiety, stress, fear, anger, guilt, shame, but it's worth sitting through. It's worth processing, because on the other side of all of that work, we begin to learn to accept ourselves unconditionally, to love ourselves not for anything we do, own, possess, not for any status that we achieve, but just for who we are as we are, with all of our attributes and all of our flaws, without the need to work on any of them, to improve them or change them, just loving ourselves and accepting ourselves as we are. And in doing that, we can comfort ourselves in our flaws, in our failings, in our missing the mark, and cheer ourselves on with our successes and our progress and our growth. That way we can treat ourselves very tenderly, very gently, very kindly. And in doing so, we will become protective of ourselves in a way that is healthy, where we won't allow other people to mistreat us, because we won't let ourselves mistreat ourselves. So the way I say that, it to me, it still sounds funny, but I've come to learn that there is no better best friend for me than myself. And when I am a good friend to myself, I'm never lonely. I can be by myself. I can have nobody else to talk to. Everybody can be busy with their thing, but being my own best friend and learning to be that and be there for myself, I crack myself up. So, you know how they say, you can talk to yourself, but you'd be worried when you answer back. Well, when you answer back, you can have the best conversations.
The conversation goes exactly how you want it to go.
Yeah, oftentimes it does. And sometimes you'll really surprise yourself too. You're like, I never knew I was so hilarious. Um, After the inward focus, and we're able to practice loving ourselves and caring for ourselves, we can start focusing on the future. This, for those who may want that, and I know I've wanted it too, the revenge on the narcissist, the best revenge on the narcissist or the toxic person, is to heal your inward wounds, learn to love yourself, and then start your future focus, living your life independently, free of anybody else's judgment, completely able to set your limits, set your boundaries, and enforce them. To walk away from people who cross them, to put them at a distance to where they have to cross an ocean in order to cross your boundaries, and they won't be willing to do that. I like to say that enforcing boundaries is never about punishing the other person. It's always about thanking the other person who crossed your boundaries, violated your limits, thanking them for showing you that they are not safe at that level of intimacy, that they need to be further away. And the way you do that is by separating yourself from them, sharing less information with them or none at all, sharing less time with them or none at all. And of course, every situation is unique and different, especially when we have a narcissistic ex that we have children with. There's only so much distance we can put between us, because we still both have those children to raise, and there's going to be some interaction there. So those boundaries might have to be negotiated a little bit differently than with somebody that we can actually go no contact with and put at a further distance. So where do we begin in our recovery? Is there a recipe, a place that we start? The answer is yes and no. Our recovery starts right where we're at now, with whatever we're dealing with whatever we're focused on. There's no, I've got to start here, I've got to start there. The inward focus, the grief, the outward focus. It's whatever your situation is, you're the only one who knows it well enough to be able to say, yes, this is what I've got to work on. Other people may have suggestions and ideas. However, this is your unique and completely wholly owned by you recovery process. So anyone else's opinions or advice or thoughts, you can take or leave as you choose, completely guilt-free. Now, how long does it take? Well, to get back to normal. I hear normal a lot. Normal people are like this, and narcissists are like that. And really, it's more of a spectrum of healthy. There are less healthy people that are still wounded and acting out of a complex trauma response, which toxifies themselves and their other relationships. And then there are healthier people who have healed those wounds, bound them up, put them to rest, and moved on to where they may still have the scars from it internally, emotionally, that affects how they interact with people now, but it doesn't trigger a repeat of a toxic cycle of behavior. Has anyone ever had something come up in interacting with with a person in a new relationship of any kind, where a behavior from the old toxic relationship kind of crept in, and you just got this urge that you had to follow this track and you couldn't resist it? No, no one. I might be unique in
I'm
that
not
one.
sure I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you ask it again, or?
Yes, I'm thinking of an example like when my ex would cut me off after the first two words of trying to answer a question that she had asked me. I would get this urge of desperation to be heard and start raising my voice and start talking faster. And I found that after that was done and I was no longer interacting with her, if I would talk with someone else and they would ask me a question and then cut me off and start talking over me before I even had a chance to actually answer, that same urge would kick in. And it would be so powerful that it was irresistible. And inevitably, it would cause me to do what I did in that other toxic relationship. And that would spark an argument or disrespect. And next thing you know, my name's Mud because I'm behaving like the jerk.
Would you consider that to be an emotional flashback?
I would say yes. And also, it's like a habit, a conditioning, a training.
Like an emotional habit?
Yeah, where the
Mhm.
emotion, we get the emotion from the meaning we assign to the behavior that we're seeing. And so now we have this emotion which drives the habit that we used to use to kind of soothe that emotion or get out of that emotional state.
No. I do make the differentiation between emotional flashback and an emotional habit. I do think they're two separate things, and yes, I have them all the time. In little things,
Yeah.
because they're habits.
Mhm.
And so it can just be the tone of my voice or even just how I talk, how I respond to somebody. I think I did it the other day, very similar to yours in the sense of, um, oh yeah, I was at my friend's and we were watching a money program, and I'm trying to learn about money, and then the um the Fed guy came on and gave his little speech, Powell, and
Mhm.
I just go straight into, the feds and da 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 da. And I'm like, wow, Dee Dee, you're trying to be open and learn. And then I just shifted right back into this closed, not learning state. And I'm like, that's an emotional habit. It wasn't quite a flashback or anything. It's just what I do in that circumstance. And I thought about it later and I thought, I don't need to do that. I can listen and learn as much as I can because that's what I need to do right now in this environment. So yeah, I tend to do that a lot and really try to be aware of it so I can form new habits. So yeah.
Yeah, that's well said, Dee Dee. And I think you're right. The difference between the emotional flashback is the emotional flashback, a lot of times we say is we're triggered and then we have this emotion. The thing about a trigger is when a trigger is pulled, the action hits a firing pin, which ignites the gunpowder in the cartridge and sets the bullet into flight. Those emotional flashbacks happen just like that, just like firing, a bullet from a gun. And then those habits that come from those emotional flashbacks are how we deal with the response to those emotions to get us out of it, because those emotions are so negative and so strong, and we're trained to have them so that we can be easily manipulated and controlled. Because when we're in a highly charged emotional state, how easy is it to think clearly?
It's not.
And clear, calm thought is the narcissist's worst enemy. So they want us at all costs to be triggered, to take a meaning of something that invalidates us, that touches our core wound from our early childhood or youth or whenever it happened, so that our prefrontal cortex shuts down, our limbic system kicks in, our sympathetic nervous system is activated and going crazy, releasing all the stress hormones. And it's up to us to retrain ourselves to activate our parasympathetic nervous system, to shut down the stress hormones, to re-engage our prefrontal cortex, to sit with ourselves and comfort ourselves that it's okay. The urgency we feel is an illusion. We have time. We don't have to control the situation. We can let it ride. And that can be a really tough belief to change in ourselves when we've been conditioned that we have to be heard, we have to fix this, we have to please the narcissist, we have to do something right here, right now. But it's doable. It takes practice. You won't get it perfectly, not even the 100th time. Maybe, everybody's path is unique. But you can have compassion and patience and empathy with yourself and be kind with yourself and encourage yourself when those flashbacks hit, those emotional habits kick in, and you behave exactly contrary to who you want to be, your ideal person. So, there we go. So, how long does it take? Well, as long as it takes. When will we get there? It's just like telling the kids, when will we get there? When we get there. That's not to say that the challenges, the stress, the seeming chaos of the recovery journey is not worthwhile, or that it never ends, and so why bother? It just means that getting up every day or every week or whenever you remember and can get back to it, and engaging the healing journey, engaging the recovery process, is the most important thing. Whether you make progress, whether you see a change right now or not, it's a lot like physical training where if you're going to do weight training or aerobic training, you go and you train on a regular basis. You may miss a day, you may miss a week, but you get back to it and you pick up and you just keep at it, keep at it. And before you know it, you're like, wait a minute, I was trying to lift this much weight. I never could. And I just lifted it and it felt great. Or I was trying to run this far and I never could. And now I just did it with like it was nothing. It will sneak up on you, the progress, but it only sneaks up on you and really hits you if you keep at it persistently and consistently. Now, that doesn't mean to beat yourself up. You've got to do this every single day, whether you feel like it or not. Sometimes you just got to step back and say, no recovery today. I'm just going to do what I need to do, rest, or I'm just too frazzled. I got to work through this first, and then I can come back to it. The good thing is you're in control. You're the captain of the ship. You own the ship. You decide where it's going and how long you're going to take to get there. Natalie, yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you're saying that I totally agree. It's our own workout that we have to do. And there's days that you're like, yeah, I don't care. You just want to just give up. But as you notice those progresses, I feel like for me anyway, I start like, oh, like I did good. And then it encourages you and makes you want to be better and try harder and be a healthier version of yourself. And you start feeling, proud of yourself and you're in a good place now, and you start recognizing these things, and it helps you to try to do more and more. But it is a roller coaster, definitely.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Another analogy is losing weight. I've lost weight before and gotten to a healthy weight. And I didn't expect this. I just was doing what I was doing. At a certain point, I started getting double takes from random people, men, women, anybody. I was like, what's going on? This is uncomfortable. And because I'd never had that happen before, I began to realize the guys were admiring me because they're like, oh, he's fit. Wonder what he's doing. And the ladies were admiring me. And I was just like, that's uncomfortable. Why are they looking at me? What do they want? What are they going to criticize? What's wrong with me? It took some work to realize, no, the progress I've been doing on a daily basis with no perceivable change each day had accumulated. And now it was very obvious to the rest of the world. And I was getting a positive attention, which I wasn't used to. And that set me off, to be quite honest. It made me kind of stop taking care of myself for a little while to get back to what was comfortable, which was being ignored or looked at with, something other than admiration. So that can happen, and that's okay. It helps to know that that could happen and how it may play out so that you can retake control of it and decide how and when you want to get back on track on your recovery and healing journey. Now, also like any kind of fitness, physical fitness, the recovery journey is emotional fitness, psychological fitness, relational fitness. It's not for like a treatment regimen of this many weeks doing this many, sessions of this and this much medication and you're done, you're all fine. It's a lifelong process of habits of learning how to live with yourself in a state of acceptance and love. And from that, being able to accept and love other people and set, negotiate, and maintain healthy boundaries, limits that will keep you from spending yourself being sacrificed unnecessarily, being used up, drawn in, carrying somebody else's toxic burden that isn't yours to even carry. So it becomes a lifelong process. Not to say that it's a life sentence to the, being chained to the prison of recovery. Rather, it's more like you go through this process that's a lot of work, a lot of focus, a lot of effort, and eventually it becomes innate. It becomes habitual. It becomes easy because it's automatic or almost automatic. And you start to get a sense of healthy feeling comfortable and toxic feeling uncomfortable, so that you naturally steer away from the toxic relationships and toxic behaviors in people. And you trust your gut, because when somebody behaves in a certain way, you go, wait a minute, that's off. Instead of saying, oh, but I'm not going to trust myself, let me give them a chance. You go, that's off. I need to stay away. If they're going to fix it, they'll fix it. They'll change it. And then we can see, but I'm going to keep clear. Because now we can love ourselves enough to say, I don't have to give everybody as many chances as they demand. I can give people the chances I decide to let them have, to keep myself from becoming poisoned with their toxicity. And that really is a much more peaceful and comfortable place to live than it seems like when we're still in the trauma and in the recovery. So how do I know that I'm making progress? Well, it's not a cookie cutter recipe. There aren't key performance indicators or metrics. It's not like a corporate, how do we measure this in accounting terms? It's really, you're the only one who can know that you're making progress. And sometimes you won't even know that you're making progress, except for by the fact that you're engaging in the recovery process, that you're showing up every day or every week, or you're showing back when you get off track and come back to it, and reprocessing, reminding yourself, practicing all the different techniques and skills of good, healthy self-care, psychologically, emotionally, relationally, physically, in every way. And knowing that you make progress, has anyone ever, and I know that you have, so feel free to speak up if you'd like to. Has anybody ever been going real good on your recovery? You think you got it, next thing you know, you're completely sidetracked or backtracked? Yeah, Natalie.
Yes. The answer is yes. I have. I have. And it's hard because you are doing so good. And then, but I've done it, and not, it's been lately, and it's with when I see people that I know and my ex knows, and they know the situation, and it's mostly social media stuff. And then, he puts on a picture of his new family and my kids are in it. And all these people that know both of us, that know the situation, that he cheated and that he was just not, it was just not a good situation. They all love the picture that he puts on, and oh, it's such a cute family, and and I'm just like, it bothers me that they will be so supportive of that when they know what he's done. But I have to stop, and I can start going down a rabbit hole when I start into that. I don't see his stuff on social media, but when I see people comment that I'm friends with still, then I see that they comment on this. And so anyway, I just have to remember that, look at it from their point of view, but yeah, I would try to be nice to someone, even if I knew that they did this to their ex, and I was still trying to be kind to them. So I try to look at it from their point of view, and then that helps me. But yeah, it's hard to get set back. It really can throw you. But you just have to forge ahead.
Yeah, and that's a really, really difficult thing to experience. With social media is a new thing, and it didn't used to be that hard in the past. I mean, it would happen, but now it's instant and it's constant with social media. It's far easier and more frequent, and it reopens those wounds. It's very painful. So
Yeah.
yeah, developing some skills to manage that, because it's gonna happen, and
Mhm.
reframing it so that it doesn't mean what it used to mean, and
Yeah.
changing our beliefs about it, and realizing, like you said, that you're seeing it from their perspective, that they didn't go through what you went through, so they're not going to have the same blocks to supporting that person, whether they deserve
Yeah.
it or not. That's
Yeah.
the other people just can't see it.
If I could say, I think I can kind of relate to that, because that's deep down, like I really don't wish anything bad on my ex, but then I feel like selfishly, it's like it's not fair. How come you get to have, like, because my ex cheated as well when I was pregnant and with a married woman, and then they had a kid, but they got an abortion. Well, he's fighting me for custody on mine, and then they still like stay together, and like they're so in love. And I mean, that's not, I'm not, I don't want to say that I'm like jealous of that, because it's like you can have him, because I know how both of you are.
Mm.
But it's also like, well, what am I doing wrong that I'm still single and I can't find that kind of love? Because deep down, I know it's fake. I know that they're not, even if they consider what they have as love, to me, I don't think that's real, because I don't believe a narcissist can really truly love somebody the way that the definition of love, in my opinion, should be. And I don't know if that's like really, really judgmental, but I feel like I'm not on social media, but part of it is because I think I would be like, oh, well, what the heck, and maybe it's juvenile to say that. I don't know. I can feel that too, because I don't wish anything, like I said, I don't wish anything bad on him, but I just wish people would stop believing the lies. Like, you know what he did, you know what he's done, and yet people seem to be okay with it. And I'm all about forgiveness. I know that we have to do that to move forward. It just kind of, that's I think what sets me back, is like, well, why do people still believe the lies? Like, he's not a good partner, he's not a good father, and maybe that's something that I have to get past, is do I have to look at the possible good qualities that he has, or is there something wrong with me that I have these kind of thoughts? Like, I feel like it's a tug of war, because I just want the truth to be known, at least to people that matter. Like, and if people do know, then it's like, but like you said, like, how are you okay with that? Or, why do they get such an easy pass for the things that they've done? But it feels like we continue to suffer in trying to be a good person. And then maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm not a good person because I have these thoughts. But I
Oh, I
don't
know exactly
my
what you're saying.
like deep down, I don't want to be a bad person. I don't want to be them. And then, like I said, selfishly, I'm like, well, they're the bad person, not me. But then it's like, well, maybe am I as bad as them? Like, I don't like that tug of war, and I just want the truth out there. Like, it's not that I don't want him to be happy. I just don't understand how they can get through this so easily. Like, it doesn't, they're not hurt, which is fine, because obviously that shows that they don't care. But I don't know. It bothers me that the truth is hidden, or feels hidden, because it's like, what they did, you understand the pain that they caused, and yet it's almost like it's okay. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's hard for sure, because I don't think I'm stuck. Like I said, I used to be like, oh, I hate him. I can't stand him. Like, he never should be happy kind of thing. I don't feel like that anymore. But I do get set back when it's like, you know, he brought the woman that he cheated on me with, to one of my son's soccer games. And they even joined like the same baseball team. And like they would like shove it in my face about how they're in love and they're all together. It's like, you did that when we were married. Like, I don't really care to see that again because you're both gross. But like it's I don't know. Like I said, maybe this is juvenile, like high school, like ew, but like I said, they can have each other. It just kind of makes a maybe a self-centered perspective to be like, but that hurts too. Like, I want somebody for my sons that they can look up to. I want somebody that, and my kids to say like, Mom, I want a new dad. I don't like dad. He's mean. He does this. And even she's mean to to them too. And like, well, you know, she ignores us or he yells at us kind of thing. It's like, well, then you go be your own little happy family and let me keep mine and just leave us alone. Like, the truth about who they are as a person, but then even if it is out there, like if it's excused, I think that's the biggest frustration. Or it feels like it's excused behavior.
Yeah, you hit on some really key points there, Anita, and it's a core need that we have as human beings. It's what we have 12 needs. One of the needs we have is for validation and affirmation. What you're talking about there is vindication. When you see something that is wrong, that is clearly wrong, but the other person is hiding it so well that other people can't see it, and they won't listen to you, like, no, that doesn't make any sense. The craving for that vindication is normal and it's healthy. It's a good thing. Where it goes wrong is when it becomes a craving for vengeance, that we've got to reveal them, that we've got to show them that they've got to get their just desserts and we're going to bring it about. It's not in our power and it's not our place to bring that about. So something, I don't know if this will help you, but it helped me. Narcissists are a lot like food commercials, in that food commercials for Denny's, IHOP, McDonald's, Burger King, you know, you pick the food or anything. Those food commercials, it's not real food, but it makes us hungry just the same. And narcissists, when they move on and get into other relationships, what you're seeing is a food commercial. It's not mayonnaise, it's plastic. It's not maple syrup, it's motor oil. You know, it's not an ice cold cup of soda. It's, you know, just plastic that's been manufactured. And from a distance, through the television screen at a distance, it makes us hungry. You know, we want that. Yeah, who wouldn't? It looks good. It looks like it would satisfy. But if you were to eat what is actually presented in those commercials, you would poison yourself and you wouldn't get any nutrition. You'd hurt yourself. And when you go to the restaurant, anybody ever gone and gotten fast food and you're looking at the menu and that looks good, and you look at your tray and what's it look like?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what's it taste like? It's like, oh, I thought that would be satisfying, but it's just like a rock sitting in my stomach. Narcissists are very much the same way. That's a very, very, very accurate metaphor for narcissists and their new relationships. Yes,
Yeah.
Dee
You're making me hungry. I'm just kidding. No, first I just want to acknowledge how painful that must have been to go through for both of you. And I think I've experienced something not the same at all, but having something taken away from me, having been betrayed by people, and then their life seems so wonderful and they're doing so well, and I'm just I'm crying every night. They're doing great, and I think there's something in it that there's an ideal or a sense of justice, that there should be justice in the world, and there's not, and it's wrong. And I think for people that are on the more codependent side of the picture, or the more sensitive side of the narcissist, not narcissist relationship, that sense of justice can be really strong in us. We want justice in the world. We fight for the underdog. We have a lot of compassion for people that are hurting. And so to see that not happening when I'm the one involved, it kind of can trigger for me the place where I'm not seen. I wasn't seen by the narcissist, and now I'm not seen by other people in the world. And that my pain, like, I think, yeah, my pain isn't validated. My suffering isn't acknowledged in the world. And that doesn't make sense to me. And so I get a lot of self-doubt, or it can trigger my own feelings of self-worth and all of that, because people should see it, and they should know. I mean, give me a break. Any good friend would, but it's such a weird thing how even good friends. I mean, I had good friends that would talk to these people that totally hurt me, and I'm like, I thought you were my I thought you knew how much they hurt me. How can you just go talk to them? But, and I think that's very, very hard to take in, that not just the betrayal that happened with the person and all of that pain, but there's kind of a secondary pain that happens, and a lot of grief. I think there's a lot of grief in it, and a lot of real sadness that the pain and the experience isn't acknowledged, isn't seen. And it took me years to work through that. Um, And if I mean, I don't know, worked through or acclimated to it, I should say more. And I really had to work with my own understanding of justice, and my own thinking of fairness too, because that kept getting me caught, like it's not right. and it's not right. But I think, yeah, so having to work with and that's on a bigger picture, the whole being taught that things should be fair and people should be kind and all this kind of stuff, and realizing that that's not necessarily true in the world is very disillusioning for me, for the world too. So there's a lot of layers of grief and pain that are also very real. And so I just want to add that to the pot, because it's really easy to be like saying, like, maybe I'm just a mean person, maybe I want this. And it's like, no, it's just very confusing. It's very confusing, and there's a lot of layers to it. And that's how I see it. And I wanted to add that to the pot.
Yeah, thank you, Dee Dee. I appreciate that so much. And I do want to acknowledge that that is an awful lot of pain. And thank you for acknowledging that with what you shared, Anita. Thank you for acknowledging that, Dee Dee. And I'm so sorry that you experienced that. It should have never happened. There's and we don't really get into religion in this group, but from time to time we'll make references, because there's a lot of wisdom in the world, and some of it's found in religious texts. But there's a verse that goes something like, seek justice, and the word for seek is to chase it, to pursue it, to hunt it down. I mean, to just go after it relentlessly. And then the very next thing is but love mercy. So to seek justice and love mercy. And mercy is, justice is getting people what they deserve, and mercy is treating people better than what they deserve. And then the third part of that verse is to walk humbly. And humbleness is being open to correction, not needing to be right, not having to bend the world and the universe to our what we perceive is good and bad and right and wrong. That to let it be as it is and be open to that. Yes, Dee Dee.
You made me think of something else, David, and I appreciate those words. I appreciate those words. And I also, and actually my response inside of me when I heard them, not about religion or anything like that, but that there is a place for anger too.
Mhm.
Like it isn't right. And I think sometimes when we're on the receiving end from a narcissist, it's very hard to be angry. Anger is used against us quite a bit. If we get
Mhm.
angry, it's like, it gets shoved in our face. And so I think it is hard. It was very hard for me to allow myself to say, no, what they did is wrong and I'm angry. And what my friends did, I don't like that either. And it made me question their friendship. It made me reevaluate whether this is okay for me to have people in my life that don't see me and that aren't acknowledging my pain and aren't not on my side per se, because I understand that dynamic with this, but sure, why not? And to be able to say, I don't like that, and that doesn't work for me,
Mhm.
and it is wrong and it sucks, and it, I don't want to know those people either. I want to know people that say, man, what he did to you sucks, and I don't want to I don't want to know people like that in my life either. And you say, yeah, me neither. Let's go, let's meet people that are good, and I think sometimes anger can really form a good boundary for not letting it happen again, or not letting those voices and those the maybe it wasn't so bad, or just that I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but it can be a good, it can be welcomed. And I'm not talking about rage, and I'm not talking about, even if it can go there though,
Mhm.
rage can be just great. Um, because it is enraging. So I just want to make room for anger there too, because yeah.
It's definitely a motivator,
What do you mean?
anger,
Yeah.
motivate to change things.
Mm.
And like these people that that know both of you, and they still are nice. They know what's happened. They're still nice to whoever for my situation, the ex, and they're nice to me too. That kind of tells me they're kind of milk toast people for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get,
Like,
yep.
I see where they at. I see what I mean to them. They're acquaintances. They're fun to talk to when I'm around them. But as far as any other relationship or any further relationship, it ends there.
Yeah,
I was
They
gonna
don't.
say I thought a boundary, the word boundary with anger, I
Yeah.
think.
Mhm.
I love that. Exactly
Yeah.
my point. Yeah. It sometimes we can't find the boundary, but anger will tell us.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
love that. Yeah.
And anger is an indicator of someone crossing those boundaries. I've heard that been described as a response to feeling helpless. And that is, I think it's more accurate, like you said, Anita, it's an indicator that boundaries have been crossed, limits have been violated. And like you said, Natalie, it's a motivator. There's another verse that, and I come from this background, so I have a lot of references there, but there's a verse that says, is more accurately translated, in your anger, do not miss the mark. And what would missing the mark be? Well, becoming a person we don't want to be, allowing our anger to translate into that rage that puts us out of control, that makes us behave in a way that the narcissist wants us to behave, so that they can point at us and say, see how terrible they are. And in our anger, we can hit the mark by using that as the indicator. Hey, they violated this limit, they violated this boundary, so now they get more distance. And we're not allowed by the narcissist to set boundaries or negotiate them or maintain them. It has to be their boundary, their limit. But that's not true in reality. In reality, You are the authority on what your limits and your boundaries are. And when somebody crosses them and you feel that anger to indicate they've crossed them, you are completely within your rights to renegotiate at any time that boundary and say, okay, thank you for letting me know you're a milquetoast friend, because you're not seeing my pain and you're dishonoring my suffering and what they did to me by still being in good terms with them. And on top of that, they might be a flying monkey. They might be an avenue for that person to investigate us, to spy on us, and to use that against us. So you're totally within your rights to renegotiate the limits of closeness with anybody at any time, as that makes you healthy and safe, so that you can recover and heal and grow and prosper. There's a lot of really great points tonight. I'm so glad everybody's here. Last little bit here we have is what to
Hey,
do.
David, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've got to go because it's
Okay.
7 o'clock. I've just got to go. So I'm going to say goodbye.
Bye, Dee
Bye,
Dee.
See you
Dee
guys
Dee. Thank
next
you for
time.
being
Your
here.
insight.
I'll see you
Totally
soon. I'll see
understand.
you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Mhm.
So what to do when we have setbacks? We've kind of touched on this throughout the presentation a little bit. And the reason for that is because setbacks can come in all kinds of shapes, forms, sizes, intensities at any time. It can really be kind of random. Sometimes we can see them coming. Sometimes we go through it and we don't even realize we even had a setback until afterwards. And we're like, whoa, wait a minute. Now I see what was going on there. So it's a big part of the process. It doesn't mean that you're not recovering. It doesn't mean that you're not healing. It doesn't mean that you're not making progress. It means exactly the opposite, that you are healing, you are making progress, and you are recovering. If you weren't, it wouldn't be a setback. It'd just be another day.
Yep.
So ways to deal with a setback is when you recognize it and you're like, okay, I'm getting caught up in this. My emotions are kicking in. The habits are kicking in. My nervous system is going crazy. My hormones are kicking in. I got all the cortisol and adrenaline, and name it. Just name it out loud or in your head. Describe the feeling, describe the sensations, put names to it. There's, the old stories about leprechauns. If you learn a leprechaun's name, then they lose all their power. Or what are the other, some of the other little magical creatures in the forest. I think those stories in part are just a metaphor for what's going on inside of us when we name these things. I don't know how and I don't know why, but they seem to lose their strength. They seem to calm down and say, I've been seen. You recognize me. I'm now here to serve you, instead of pay attention to me. Pay attention. You need to do this. Just naming it. It seems so dull, boring, simple. But there's something going on with just naming what we're experiencing, the sensations, the emotions, whatever, putting a name to it, that I don't need to understand it. I'll just go ahead and use it. And for me, it helps when I say, okay, I'm really angry. I'm feeling nervous, anxious. I don't like this person. There's a tightness in my belly, whatever the sensation is, whether it's emotional or physical, just naming it to myself. That works for me to bring it back under control. Now, not always 100%. Sometimes it's so strong, I got to name it. And it's just like, yeah, I'm not paying attention to you. We're doing this. And that's okay too. That just reveals that there's something deeper and stronger that is there that we didn't necessarily know about before. And now we can recognize it and set to chipping away at it and peeling back the layers, is very common to say here, because healing all these wounds and emotions and experiences is so much like an onion, just layer after layer after layer, and then there's something else, and we think we got it, and there's something new, and then we go, whoa, I didn't even know that was there. And then we're like, yeah, I kind of saw that, but now I see it clearly. Naming is a big, big portion of it. And of course, being empathetic to ourselves and compassionate to ourselves. Does anybody else talk to themselves in ways they would never talk to even their worst enemy? I know I have. No, I raised my own hand. All right. I know I set that setting, but I've never seen it work until tonight. So yeah, if we look at ourselves like we're hired to take care of ourselves as best as we possibly can, like we're in our own foster care, and we're accountable to, whoever put us in there in the care of ourselves. For me, that has been easier than just trying to treat myself with love and compassion. I'm like, no, I'm accountable to somebody else, and I just kind of make somebody else up in my head. I've been given myself to take care of. I've got to my responsibility is to take care of me as best as I can. And I can't be talking to myself this way. I've got, I would talk to anybody else so much kinder with so much more empathy. Why not do that for myself? I need to do that. I have to. I'm obligated. For me, that works. But you can find your own way, your own method to have that self-compassion and talk yourself out of the negative self-talk, if that even works for you. Some people can do it that way. Some people can't. Everybody's unique, and there's no right or wrong way to deal with it. The point is to start practicing, even in the smallest sense, loving ourselves and taking good care of ourselves. And part of that is showing gratitude to ourselves for the good things we do, for being patient with ourselves, for saying, yeah, okay, I blew it. I didn't want to do that, but it's okay. I can do better next time. It's understandable. I've got limited strength, limited resources. I'm not perfect. I'm not there yet. Maybe I'll never be, but having that compassion for ourselves and just practicing it even in the smallest bit. And then that it even comes out to where we can actually be that validation and vindication to ourselves, where we don't necessarily need someone else to recognize, hey, yeah, this is going on. And because there is a real grief whenever what's good and healthy and right in relationship and loving and kind is missed, and something toxic is done instead. And that's a legitimate grief to experience and to express and to be upset about and to want to see made right. And getting past that so that we don't get caught up in rumination on things we can't control is another part of our recovery process. Go ahead, Natalie. You had your hand raised.
Oh, I I was gonna say, when we have our setbacks, even just to say, well, yeah, I messed up, or I shouldn't have done it that way, but at least I'm not anything like the narcissist. So I'm still on the right path. I was just being silly, but
if it works, it works, right? That's that. Yeah. There's one last thing I want to mention in this presentation before we close it out, which is accountability is mostly associated with consequences, punishment, being called to task and shamed into what did you do and why. There's a flip side of accountability that is every bit as important as what went wrong, explain it, what was your thinking, and it's this part. Cheering yourself on, rewarding yourself for any successes that you have, any progress that you make, any Any time that you come close to even hitting the target, even if you don't even come close to hitting the bullseye of being the person that you aim at being, rewarding yourself, cheering yourself on, celebrating yourself is every bit as much a part of, that's a lot of words. Every bit as much a part of accountability as what did we do wrong. Explain yourself. And I just want to encourage you that hold yourself accountable in both ways. Correct yourself with compassion and cheer yourself on with enthusiasm. And both of those combined will help make continuing on the recovery process and recovery journey and becoming the healthiest you can be, to be your ideal self, the person that you aim and strive to be all the time, so much more attainable, so much more pleasant to do, that you'll actually begin to enjoy the process. And that is our presentation for tonight. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching this video. I'd like to invite you to join us in the Sharpening Stone Coaching group on meetup.com. Just go to meetup.com and search for us, the Sharpening Stone Coaching. We'll be glad to have you join our group and begin or continue your recovery journey. We'll see you soon.